Yeah, Arkevious, you are quite familiar with the statistics. I don't have to rattle them off. And too often, leadership is offering prescriptions that doesn't involve real input from our young people. It's that I know best approach to dealing with young folks. When you are engaged with our young people, what are they saying about the challenges they actually face as opposed to what adults say they actually face?
Great question, Ron. One of the things I feel like that the problem with adults is that we approach every situation with the, like you said, I know best, opposed of I'm going to listen to understand and not listen to respond. And in a lot of these circumstances where these young people don't come to adults for advice because they don't listen. And we was taught like that too. We was taught by our parents that shut up.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? And so we walked away from that moment, you know what I mean, and not in disbelief, but hurt that, you know what I mean, you're not trying to listen to me.
Yeah, and let me just be honest. That's the tension that happens between, particularly my daughter, is that, Dad, you always want to debate. You got to get the last word. Can you just listen?
Listen. And that's one of the hardest things with just humans, just in general, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, that's what my approach is, always to listen, to understand. And not respond. Now, once I'm listening to you, I want you to listen to me.
Yeah.
But first, I want to listen to you. And I think that's one of the biggest things, that if you want to reach our youth today, learn to listen and pay attention. You know what I mean? Because they'll tell you in their behavior, they'll tell you in their body language, they'll tell you if you actually just listen.
Yeah, absolutely. DeMario, I met you, gosh, and of course, in the interest of full disclosure, I work with your wife here at Radio 1, Charlotte. And when I met you, I was so inspired by your foundation, because when you talk about academic achievement, one of the things that's interesting to me is that we all had it in us when we were young. We just needed someone to kind of pull it out of us.
Absolutely.
Tell our listeners what you see in our young people that many of us just don't see, that gets you motivated to keep pushing and encouraging them to achieve their best selves.
Absolutely. The one thing that I do see is that kids actually want to do good, right? A lot of kids want to do better than what they see, but the problem is they have to deal with those issues when they're at home. No matter how many times you can take a kid out of that situation and give them light, give them peace, give them education, give them love, they have to go back into those environments that may not be conducive for them, but that's why I love doing it, because that's what I see. I see that these kids want to be better, right? Some of them do. Like, even the ones that make bad decisions, they're just being misled, and sometimes they don't even know it, right? And so, I see that there is a need. Every single day I watch the news, I see that, there's just a need that we're trying to fill. And I'm just glad that it's three brothers like us who have walked three different lives, right? And we can speak from three different perspectives, and I think all of which our young kids, black, white, Spanish, or indifferent, can benefit.
Because they're not getting taught purpose when they need to be getting taught purpose. I feel like if you're teaching these young men and young women about purpose, then they won't go out here and just shooting at life as if life is just what it is.
Okay. Go ahead.
Just to add to that, and I don't disagree with you, bro. But I also feel like, there's so many other struggles in that whole line of
it's a whole lot.
thing. Imagine, okay, so like purpose, right? Look at my brother Ark here. There's no way at his younger age, with his environment that he grew up in, his parents could teach him purpose,
right?
And he could even see it, right? And his story is a lot of what our kids go through. The ones that we're seeing doing a lot of this stuff out here in the streets are, a lot of the kids they have backgrounds like my man Arkevious has. And that's the kid that we're trying to touch. But not only that kid, there's a kid like myself and like Avery. Avery's raised in a two-parent home, had college bound, the whole thing. But he still had issues and he needed help.
Two-parent home, but my parents were 16 and 17.
Well,
so I was raised by kids.
Yeah, so I'm with you. My mom had me at 16.
Yeah.
So, we all have that thing, but we got to be just as understanding of our own situations, which helps us to
address what's going on.
Well, let me just say this, and we'll bring Arkevious in. It appears to me that I was the only good kid in this room.
Ron is from New Jersey. Ain't nothing. Ain't you from Jersey?
Yeah.
Everything dirty in Jersey.
Yeah. He slid out at the right time. You know.
But Arkevious, you do get frustrated. You do get annoyed. Given the enormity of what our young folks are dealing with, I know that you get angry when you hear about another shooting and the gang violence that continue to besiege our community. Aren't there moments where you just want to take a break of some kind?
Yes, absolutely. Let me tell you, honest God truth. I've been around violence my whole entire life. And I am not going to sit here and tell you that I'm ashamed. I'm not ashamed of what I'm about to say. I am desensitized. I'm not bothered.
Wow.
And I'm not bothered because I've seen it. I'm around it, you know, and I go into the jails and I sit with these 15, 16-year-old kids who are facing their whole entire life. And, you know, I've also was that kid who tried to take people's lives. And I think now I've got to the point that, you know, it's going to continue to happen. I only can save who I can save. I'm not going to get my emotions tied up in it because it's an assignment for me. And if I get too caught up in the emotion part of it, and yes, it's sad. It is. But if I get too caught up emotionally, that I'll become sidetracked. And so I focus on who I can save and who I can reach and who I can really help. And I hope that it does. I believe every soil is good soil. It just need to be tended to. It just need to be added some nutrition, some nourishment, some love, some care. If you as a gardener know if you can really bring anything back to life if you do the right things and take the right steps. But you know, I get frustrated a lot. I get tired a lot. But it's not with the kids, it's with the parents. I get frustrated and tired with the parents. And so my frustration is never with the kids because honestly, a lot of them understand what they're doing, but they don't understand what they're doing. And it's a difference between knowing and understanding. They know what they did was wrong, but do you understand the consequences and the effect, that it has? And you know, when you don't have the structure like I didn't have the structure. My mom was a drug addict. My father was a drug addict. My brothers were drug dealers. I watched the violence. I watched my brother shoot my other brother 5 times, you know, at 12 years old. I watched my mom nod out with needles in her arm. You know, I watched my father, you know, have women in and out the house. So, you know, I started using cocaine and marijuana at 13. So I was doing what I was around. And, you know, and when you seen it coming up, you know, when you see it now, yeah, a lot of these young boys, and they're doing what I used to do. And I only can reach if you want to be reached. I can't, honestly, I can't stay right here with you. I can't walk this thing with you. I'm going to put you on the path. I'm going to give you the tools. I'm going to give you the direction where you need to go. If you want it, it's going to work. If you don't want it, this is the consequences behind it. It's your choice. I do believe in the justice system. A lot of people don't, but I believe in prison. I believe a lot of young boys need to go to prison. They need that set down. They need that. They need it. If it wasn't for prison, I wouldn't be sitting right here right now with you. And so that's why I believe in it, because prison saved my life. And so a lot of these young boys need it. They need to get locked up. You know what I mean? So a lot of people might disagree with it, but nah, lock them up.
I was just about that.
Yeah, lock them up. I'm proud, and I don't back down from that. Lock them up. Give them 5 years. Give them 7 years. Set them down. You're not going to get those 5-7 years back, but hopefully that set down will spark something, because it did for me. I was tired. I did everything. I've been through the whole system, and if it wasn't for me sitting down on that last 10-year bid, I wouldn't be sitting right here with you.
Karate as a young kid. Okay, and there are many sports activities available to young folks. Do you see that there is a dearth of recreational activities in our community? In other words, there's just not enough for young people to keep their minds focused on something singular to keep them out of trouble. Talk a little bit about that.
I definitely believe that there is a lack of recreational sports, and even if there is something that these young men and women can play, it's expensive. You know, but I know, like, for me, I talk about this a lot to some of the kids. It's really knowing, like, purpose. Like, my mom and dad, growing up, I will always tell them, you know, I want to play football. I want to play football. You know, my mom and dad, they would really feed into my passion. They would really feed into me playing football, all the way to the point to where I went to college and I played football because I believed in it so much. My mom and dad actually put that in my mind. And I believe that parents must do the same thing for their younger kids. It's recreational sports out there, but if we're not feeding our kids, you know, the right fruit or putting the right things in their minds when it comes to these recreational sports, then they ain't gonna want to do it. They ain't gonna want to do it. And another thing, my daughter right now, before she started running track, she ain't want to run track. We didn't give her an option. There's too many options out here. Parents are allowing their kids to make the option, to have options. You know, if you don't want to run, you ain't got to run. Well, that ain't how I was raised. My dad, boy, you going to practice today? You know, even if I didn't want to go to practice. So yeah, I definitely see a big difference when it comes to recreation from when I was growing up to today, right now. You know.
Well, Arkevious, you know, one of the things that I love about you is that you are very transparent about your past. So juxtapose what you experienced as a young person with what the city is dealing with young people today, because I know that there are budgetary restraints. And so I'm wondering what's in your heart when it comes to the relationships that you have in terms of people making decisions not to fund recreational programs, especially when you consider what you had to experience as a young person.
You know, it's so funny because that's one of the biggest issues where you have people like myself with my organization. It's so hard to get funding. So I go a different direction with building relationships with corporations to get that allocation towards my organization to sustain the program, to keep it moving. And so, you know, it's hard because my biggest thing is, like, exposure is the best teacher. And I didn't get an opportunity to do a lot of things as a kid. You know what I mean? I was confined to that street, either the street that I lived on or the street beside it, or the street beside it. I wasn't given the opportunity to go to Tennessee to go on a men's retreat. I wouldn't have been able to do that for my young boys if I didn't create a relationship with the person that was over that. Or take my young men to Lake Norman on one of a friend of mine's, his pontoon boat that is really state of the art, and give them an opportunity to go fishing. You know, I wouldn't have been able to do that if I wouldn't created a relationship with people. So I'm just glad that I've stepped outside of being a person that know that it's important to have relationships with people, because it can be very straining to try to get funding from the government to give you allocate money to organizations that I feel like what my organization offers, there's 1,000 other organizations offer the same thing. And if that organization been around 10, 15 years, of course, that organization gonna get funding before mine get funding. But if you create relationships, hopefully that person that you build that relationship with can open up doors for you for other opportunities for funding. But it's very important because it's like our young people need programs, but in order for programs to stay around, it need funding.
Yeah. I want all three of you, you wanted to...
Yeah, I wanted to add to that because, you know, one of the biggest issues that I mean, personally for me, that I have in our community is that, you know, I feel different about recreational sports in our community. I feel like all of our parents do put into that. I feel like if you go to a football field on a Saturday, it's filled with black kids and mamas, right?
And dads.
And some dads, and, you know, but the thing is that, and they're paying that money. They're paying that money to travel. They're paying that money for uniforms, to buy the Hey Mom shirts, and all of that.
All that.
But what they're not putting their money into is educational programs. Like our community don't do that. Like I've had robotics programs. Most of my programs are all educational, STEAM based, and so I'm all about education because I believe that's one of the tickets to get out. Also, but our community don't usually put their money or put their kids in educational programs. They just don't, because their kids are sometimes, for lack of, you know, now You know
No,
what I'm
say
saying?
it the way
They're
you
not
mean.
excelling in school.
Yeah.
They're not excelling in school.
They're awesome athletes, but
They're not. They're
they
not,
can't even read on it.
They
They
can
read
barely
under
read
grade.
and write.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean,
Yeah.
with my program, I work with kids K through 12th grade. You know, before and after school programs. I've worked with kids in the 2nd grade who cannot identify letters
Wow.
and numbers.
Wow. Wow.
That's true.
But he's on a football team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And you know what's so crazy too? Because just happened last year. I spoke at someone's organization and I gifted them all my book, signed it and everything. And I chose a couple individuals who actually was in high school to read one page. One dude couldn't read it. He was in high school.
Wow. Wow.
He was in high school. So in like again, I didn't play sports coming up. You know, I was running the streets, I was selling drugs, and I was a part of that sport. But, you know, I was also a kid who struggled in school. I was reading, I know I was in the 6th grade, probably reading on maybe a 4th grade reading level. No lie. And so, you know, it's very important that, you know, that our parents, you know, stop focusing on just sports in general. If your kid is an exceptional athlete, true, yes, push that. That might be his opportunity to get to college. But it's so many people that does play the game, football, basketball, other sports, run track, has terrible attitudes. You know what I mean? They're not coachable, they're not teachable. You know what I mean? People look at Terrell Owens. You know what I mean? His attitude. You know what I mean? Look at Pac-Man. You can go down a list of athletes who are multimillionaires that characteristics and their personality sucks.